Trump-Russia collusion hoax was indeed incorrectly reported by the mainstream media. Is there anybody here able to admit that that was incorrect reporting?
It wouldn't be really appropriate for us to answer the question.
Why not? Why would that be inappropriate? I think it would be inappropriate. What's inappropriate is lying to the public.
I think you look at Joe Biden, it's bedlam. You have a man who can't lead. You have a man who can't find his way off a stage after he makes a speech that lasts for about 2 minutes. They have chaos at the border. They have chaos in the military. People are going woke.
Welcome back to Rattlesnake TV, guys. In this video, we're going to be discussing the events of the past few days in relation to the Republican primary race. It's been highly entertaining, eventful, and at times an absolute farce. A few days ago, we saw Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley go head-to-head on the debate stage, displaying about as much combined charisma as a piece of tofu. It literally looked to me like a scene from the family courtroom where two scorned lovers are trying to get custody of the kids.
Put our own people first. We have to put Governor Haley.
Let's have a look at a few highlights.
Donald Trump's running to pursue his issues. Nikki Haley's running to pursue her donors' issues. I'm running to pursue your issues.
So what we're going to do is, rather than have him go and tell you all these lies, you can go to DeSantisLies.com. It will cover the fact that he's only mad about the donors because the donors used to be with him, but they're no longer with him now. And that's because he's upset about the fact that his campaign is exploding.
The difference between Nikki Haley and me, I listened to that litany of stuff. I debated the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. I thought he lied a lot. Nikki Haley gives him a run for his money, and she may even be more liberal than Gavin Newsom is.
I wish Donald Trump was up here on this stage. He's the one that I'm running against. He's the one that I wish would be here. He needs to be defending his record.
Do not trust Nikki Haley with illegal immigration. That's like having the fox guard the hen house. She's weak on immigration. She's bankrolled by people who want open borders. And she said there shouldn't be a limit on immigration. You should work with corporate CEOs.
We have to realize my parents came here legally. They came the right way 50 years ago. They put in the time, they put in the price. They are offended by what's happening on the border. But let me tell you why Ukraine should matter. First of all, I don't think we should give cash to any country, friend or foe, because you can't follow it, you can't hold it accountable. I don't think we need to put troops on the ground, and Ukrainians want to win this themselves. But dictators always do what they say they're going to do.
This is the UN way of thinking, that we're somehow globalists and we have unlimited resources to do. I think here's the problem. You can take the ambassador out of the United Nations, but you can't take the United Nations out of the ambassador.
Do you believe Governor Haley is sufficiently pro-life?
I think she's been confused on the issue. I think she's trying to speak to different groups with different things. But when she says things like pro-lifers need to stop talking about throwing women in jail, that's a trope. No one I've ever met thinks that that's something that's appropriate.
These fellas don't know how to talk about abortion. I have said over and over again, the Democrats put fear in women on abortion, and Republicans have used judgment. And the tropes that you want to talk about, you keep saying, where is anybody talking about putting a woman in jail or giving her the death penalty? South Carolina. There is legislation right now that would put a woman in jail if she got an abortion.
Thank you, Governor.
That's why I say
Thank
that.
You. What do you admire about Governor Haley?
Well, look, I think that, at the United Nations, I did think that she spoke out strongly on some key issues, and I appreciated that. I also appreciate the state of South Carolina.
Governor Haley, what do you admire about Governor DeSantis?
I think he's been a good governor.
Okay.
You may have been wondering why there was only two people on the stage, and that's because Vivek Ramaswamy was pushed out of the debate. This is because of the manufactured media narrative that he's way behind Nikki Haley in the polls. And apparently, due to CNN's rules, he didn't qualify for the debate. More on him soon, but at the same time, carbohydrate Chris Christie, who literally nobody was ever planning on voting for, dropped out of the race and the debate for that matter because the event organizers stopped having finger food before and after the events. And just as this happened, he had the following hot mic moment where he didn't realize that the microphones were on.
She spent $68 million so far, just on TV. Spent $68 million so far, $59 million by DeSantis, and we spent 12. Who's punching above their weight and who's getting a return on their investment, And she's going to get smoked. And you and I both know it. She's not up to this.
She hasn't even been. And she's still 20 points behind Trump in New Hampshire, right?
Yeah.
And, And he's still going to carry out, right?
Yes. I talked to DeSantis called me, petrified that I would.
He's probably getting out after Iowa.
I mean, that's probably the first actually true thing he's said. She will get smoked. He's not wrong about that. So he's gone now. But Vivek being blocked from this debate just goes to show that these allegedly democratic processes are manipulated and essentially a farce. They've been trying to undermine him for a while now, and they would have been very desperate to ensure that he couldn't be a part of this debate and once again put hands on the other candidates. And also at the other debates, he was absolutely unfiltered and not very presidential. So maybe they thought that this time he'd bring up the Epstein documents or something. But just because Vivek couldn't get his hands on nuclear Nikki or on DeSantis, he's still been hitting the road, and some very sorry mainstream journalists found themselves in the following rather uncomfortable and unwanted entanglement.
This is okay. And I'm just kind of curious on the previous question that you those four things that were provably false.
Yes.
And I'm just kind of curious. I know some of these guys, we've been following some of you guys. I'm curious if there's any national media who actually believe that they were wrong, that those hearings were wrong.
Actually, it's a good question, Eddie. So Eddie's one of the, you guys are colleagues, two of the top state reps here. And I think that that's a good thing to be curious about. Just by show of hands, who here is willing to admit that the Trump-Russia collusion hoax was indeed incorrectly reported by the mainstream media? Is there anybody here able to admit that that was incorrect reporting?
It wouldn't be really appropriate for us to answer the question.
Why not? Why would that be inappropriate? I think it would be inappropriate. What's inappropriate is lying to the public.
We're doing our job asking you.
The public lied to, or did the media report on the set of facts that were provided at the time?
So that's a fair question. I actually think that the public was lied to long after the media systematically still understood that this was the product of the Steele dossier. The Steele dossier was a piece of Russian disinformation provided by the Hillary Clinton campaign that was served up to the federal government as a basis for issuing a FISA warrant to then potentially infiltrate a member of the opposition party. If this was Bush and Cheney doing it to John Kerry, this would have been the stuff of scandal, impeachment, and worse. And yet, I think it was an intentional lie that the media said that that account, which we now know to be true, was actually the Russian disinformation. Now, Shauna, I would be charitable in my interpretation of that if it were just one instance. Let me give an easier one. Just by show of hands, does anybody believe the media's reporting about the origin of COVID-19 ran flatly in face of the facts that you have a Wuhan Institute of Virology that was now the likely origin of the COVID-19 pandemic? You all said that it wasn't for a long time. By show of hands, was the Wuhan lab the likely origin of the COVID-19 pandemic? Everybody, media or not. So you have reported, the same media that has reported that the COVID-19 pandemic did not originate in a lab in Wuhan is willing to even say, unwilling to admit today.
The report came out in 2023, so I guess.
It was known that there was a Wuhan Institute of Virology where they were conducting gain-of-function research, the very city which was the origin of a global pandemic. And yet the media's explanation was that somehow it could have been any source other than actually having started in the lab. I just think that that's systematically unacceptable. The Hunter Biden laptop. Is the Hunter Biden laptop story, as reported by the New York Post, which was shut down, had the Twitter account locked for anybody who is even sharing the story of the Hunter Biden laptop found on the eve of the last election? The media reported that it was Russian disinformation on the eve of that election. Does anyone here agree that the Hunter Biden laptop story, as reported by the New York Post, was indeed accurately reported and was not Russian disinformation, but was in fact a factually owned laptop of Hunter Biden? I mean, you got to, man. I mean, your paper reported it. Does everybody else seriously not believe that?
I mean, I believe that Hunter Biden is suing Rudy Giuliani over the laptop, so I don't think that's.
So you don't believe? So you think that it actually was the product of Russian disinformation, as was reported by the media? That was the basis for suppressing this at the time.
For the Hunter Biden case,
yeah.
I'm not sure why we're talking about that.
Because it was election interference on the eve of the last election, and I think there's the same kind of election interference happening this time around. And I think it's happening, the early waves of it, with respect to the treatment of my candidacy. And I think that that is likely to be a major problem heading into the next year unless we're able to openly and transparently acknowledge the mistakes of the past. Without acknowledging the mistakes of the past, I think we are destined for an even more dangerous future. And I do not want to see a repeat of what happened in the 12 to 15 months leading up to January of 2021. I don't want to see that in this country. And I worry we're on a path to far worse than that until we have accountability 360 degrees for the mistakes that were made in that lead up. And the Hunter Biden laptop story and its suppression, Shauna, I do believe was a key part of the lead up to that. I think the suppression of the origin of COVID and the origin of the pandemic was a key part of the lead up to what happened in January of 2021.
So that was obviously hilarious and exactly what needed to be said to the mainstream media. My favorite part about that was the almost unanimous unwillingness for anybody to actually engage Vivek about these topics.
At the time.
For the Hunter Biden case,
yeah.
I'm not sure why we're talking about that.
It wouldn't be really appropriate for us to answer a question like that.
And also, Vivek has been making other quite significant moves. This week, he's had Candace Owens on the road with him. You guys that watch the channel know that that is a sandwich that I would like to be in between. If that was a bread roll, I would happily be the patty. And Candace Owens is obviously one of the most influential conservatives in America. So check out this clip where Vivek is talking a little bit about the kind of administration that he would bring to the White House and also what he would be looking for in a VP. Just watch Candace's face.
That's what it's going to require. I think it's people with strong America First libertarian leanings to get in there and actually shut that bureaucracy down, deny people budget requests, deny hiring requests, executing a 75% mass firing. I mean, honestly, if a guy like Elon Musk were born in this country, I think he'd make for a pretty good vice president to actually cut through that bureaucracy. But that's the kind of model I'm looking for. Look, I think it's going to take patriots at every level. I mean, you got one of them standing right next to me who are willing to speak hard truths to people who are actually unwilling to hear those truths at first, but to bring them along. That's the kind of character we're looking for, is people who don't shy down from a battle, from the Elon Musks to the Candace Owenses of the world. The personality types are going to be people who are unafraid to speak truth to power. That's what it's going to take. And one thing about me you should know is, and just how I'm wired, it's how I built my businesses. I want people who are at once mission aligned and yet who are still going to push back on me when they think I'm not doing something that advances the mission. Most people have gotten the reverse of that. I think this is even one of the learnings from the Trump administration, is actually you staff it with a bunch of people who are hostile to your mission, but to your face will just compliment you and kiss your feet to dupe you into getting to do what was actually hostile to your own agenda. So I'll tell you with a straight face, and apparently I'm the only person in this race who can say it. Nikki Haley will not be my vice president. Nikki Haley will not come anywhere near my administration. And neither will John Bolton or Chris Christie or Karl Rove or Mike Pence or anybody from an older view of foreign policy and actually even domestic policy of a surveillance state in this country that needs to be relegated to the dustbins of history. I'll tell you that because that's not aligned with my mission. But people like, the Elon Musks or the Candace Owenses of the world, or the people I've befriended through this process, who would push back on me and say, hey, you're getting it wrong because we're in this for a purpose and you're missing it. Those are the kind of people I do want. And a vice president, you know what you got to pick? Most people pick a potted plant because they're afraid of being overshadowed. I actually look at it the other way around. I want somebody who is, God forbid the day ever come, somebody who at least will be every bit as good, if not better in some ways than me, if they're actually going to be put in that role. That's the top job of the vice president, is the readiness to actually be a president. So that's the way I would think about staffing.
So I don't know what you guys think about this, and let me know in the comments, but if this relationship continues to flourish between Candace and Vivek, this could be a very formidable duo in the future. And Candace has hinted at a future in politics many times. She's talked about being a VP, and she's also talked about even a presidential run herself in the future. So, one to watch. And the other thing that I like about this is that she's 34, Vivek's 38. So what I think we're seeing here is a turning of the page in terms of political thought. It's like the next wave coming through. Two very influential, radical, and trailblazing millennials. So I think that no matter what happens now for Vivek, he's run a very successful campaign. He's given a few blood noses on the way. He's really put himself on the map, and he's done it his way. So I would say it'd be a success.
100% Vivek. I think he has my vote.
When Vivek is running, that'll be the first time I ever vote. Swami is probably my number one we wanted to see.
He's a younger candidate. He's not afraid to say what he means, and He speaks out for all of us young voters who have been a part of this system.
I mean, he was never going to beat Trump, obviously, if it came down to a vote. But if Trump was, for whatever reason, not allowed to run, he would have been the next best thing. But it's not over yet, so let's see what happens. But speaking of Trump, and speaking of impressive, he was on fire the other night at his town hall event. Whilst his opponents were on the debate stage, clamoring for second place, bickering amongst themselves, and begging for the support of the big donors, Trump refused to be at the debate again. Because, I mean, why would he bother with such squalid quarreling? Let's have a look at some of his best moments.
There was some breaking campaign news. Take a listen.
It's clear to me tonight that there isn't a path for me to win the nomination, which is why I'm suspending my campaign tonight for President of the United States. I am going to make sure that in no way do I enable Donald Trump to ever be President of the United States again.
So that was the big news. Late today, the former governor of New Jersey dropped out of the race in New Hampshire. You saw it there. There's a lot of speculation now that there could be a combining of forces of the people who supported him. He had about 12% there. And by some estimates, you're ahead by an average of 14 in the Real Clear Politics average polling in New Hampshire. So if that 12 goes to Nikki Haley, she could give you a run for your money there.
Well, you know, you have Democrats in New Hampshire, and they vote, and you have independents in New Hampshire in large numbers, and they vote. And I have polls that show me leading by a tremendous amount in New Hampshire and a lot in Iowa, and nationwide we're leading by almost 60 points. So I'm not exactly worried about it. I understand New Hampshire very well. I've won it twice and did very well with New Hampshire. I love the people. They love me, I think. We did a good job for New Hampshire economically and even from the standpoint of the military, taking care of the vets. And I think we're going to do very well in New Hampshire. Now, you know, Chris Christie was in, and he got a hot mic I heard about. I thought actually the bigger story wasn't the fact that he dropped out. Nobody cared too much about that. But he had a hot mic where he was talking to somebody about the weather, and he happened to say that she doesn't have what it takes. She'll be creamed in the election. And I mean, I know her very well, and I happen to believe that Chris Christie is right. That's one of the few things he's been right about, actually.
So you don't think it changes the dynamic much?
I don't know if it does or not. Look, we're winning tremendously here. I think we're 20, 24 points up. I brought some polls if you want to see them, you know, just in case. But I think we're 24, 25 points up. But New Hampshire's interesting. It's a great place, a great state, unbelievable people. But they allow independents and Democrats to vote in the Republican primary. You say, what's that all about? So it's a little bit false in that regard. But even with that, I think we'll win substantially.
Let me just ask you a follow-up on that about who would be in your cabinet, in your administration. If you are the nominee, which I know you expect to be, who would be in the running for vice president?
Well, I can't tell you that, really. I mean, I know who it's going to be.
Give us a hint.
I'll give you. We'll do another show sometime.
Well, what about any of the people who you've run against? Would you be open to mending fences with any of them?
I will. I've already started to like Christie better. No.
Christie for vice president?
I don't see it. I don't see it. That would be an upset. Christie for vice president. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to announce, I think you look at Joe Biden, it's bedlam. You have a man who can't lead. You have a man who can't find his way off a stage after he makes a speech that lasts for about 2 minutes. They have chaos at the border. They have chaos in the military. People are going woke. He can't put two sentences together, and he's representing us on nuclear weapons with Putin and Xi. You like Ron DeSantis, but he wouldn't even be around today. He'd be working in a pizza shop or perhaps a law firm if I didn't endorse him. The biggest fan of Dr. Fauci was Ron DeSanctimonious. He was a big fan. He said, I go by, exactly, quote, I go by what Dr. Fauci said.
So, I mean, he looks witty, he looks sharp, he looks healthy, he looks like he hasn't really aged since 2016, and things are looking pretty good for him, if you'd ask me. So if it is the case that he's resting on his laurels at the moment and biding his time and waiting for the campaign trail to start to really hit his stride again, then I think the plan is going well. And I absolutely cannot wait to see what's in store. It's going to be such an entertaining year. And also, Trump's social media game has been strong as well. Check out this video he posted today.
At White House Senior Living, our residents feel right at home. Our vibrant facility offers delightful activities and outings, round-the-clock professional care, and exquisite house-made meals.
Well, I've been eating everything that's put in front of me, but I've been eating all Italian food, basically.
And ice cream.
And ice cream, chocolate chip ice cream.
White House Senior Living, where residents feel like presidents.
So, guys, hold on to your hats. It is going to be a massive 2024. I'm going to be in the United States for it, covering the election. If there's anything you guys would like to see me do, go to Trump rallies, go and debate some liberals on the street, whatever it is, let me know in the comments. Or you can reach out and send me a message on social media as well. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, you can click here. And if you'd like to watch another video, click right here. Till next time, I'm Jake. This is Rattlesnake TV, keeping you armed and dangerous.